Hello and welcome to Hoop 7's Basketball Hustle for another week, and it's a massive show. We've got the second one with my new co-host. Really excited for that. We've got plenty to dissect, including our reaction to the Perth Wildcats 40th anniversary team, which might not have quite gone as we predicted last week. We'll catch up with the Boomers coach Rob Beveridge, and there's a lot to discuss with him as well. We've got a 400th game from Jesse Wagstaff to look forward to. And that's not even touching on what we've seen on the court over the past week since our last show. So plenty to get through. I'm Chris Pike, your co-host, but the man who was a hit on his first show, and I'm looking forward to seeing what he brings in his second, Cody Ellis. Thanks for joining me once again.
Chris and listeners, thanks for having me back. Appreciate it.
That must mean you enjoyed the first show enough to come back.
I did. It was a lot of fun. And look, it was a fairly lengthy episode, and I feel like we probably could have talked for another hour or so after that anyway. So yeah, man, really enjoyed it, and hopefully the listeners did too. Yeah,
absolutely. Got some great feedback, and yeah, well, I mean, just the insight you offered into the league, but also your personal journey, I think made it a special show. Also, our predictions of the anniversary team, which we'll get to shortly, might have forebode a little bit of what we're about to hear a couple of days later. So I can't wait to pick your brain about that. It's amazing how much has happened on the court in the NBL as well, which we'll get to shortly. But before we start all of that, we're going to catch up with your old coach, Bevo, who's now getting ready to coach the Boomers as well. But we talked about him last week in that ill-fated last season at the Hawks. And this is your first chance to talk to him in a long time. I'm sure you're looking forward to catching up with him.
Yeah, absolutely. It's been a few years. I think the last time we caught up was his last year at the Gong when they were over here playing the Cats. So I got to catch up with him, and it was only for 10 minutes then. So we're really looking forward to it. It'll be good to catch up with him.
We're looking forward to that. We might even have a special ring-in, so I won't promote that in advance just in case it doesn't happen. But if it does happen, stay tuned at some point during this show and you might have a very special extra guest. Of course, we're here thanks to Hoop 7. If you're in Perth, head to their store on Murray Street in the Perth City. If not, or if you're anywhere else in the world, head to hoop7.com.au, the best basketball store you'll ever find. So everything you can hope to find, you'll find there. Now, it was an amazing weekend of action in the NBL, Cody. But I think probably, especially over this part of the world, the biggest talking point was the Wildcats announcing the 40th anniversary team.
Yep.
Before we get to the full squad, we spoke last week, and when we saw the starting five get announced, which was made up of James Crawford, Andrew Vlahoff, Sean Redditch, Bryce Cotton and Ricky Grace, we were feeling pretty good because that's exactly what we picked.
It was. And really, if that wasn't your starting five, apart from Sean, who didn't have himself in there. If that wasn't your starting five, then, I don't know what teams you're looking at.
Yeah, no, fair enough. It was my team as well, so I can't argue. When things really got interesting was in the five off the bench. So no arguments at all with Paul Rogers as the centre, I don't think, as we talked about last week. Yep. Scott Fisher as well, who, you potentially could have argued in a starting role, with Sean, so no problems there. Damien Martin picks himself, obviously, and he was named captain, which I think is fair enough as well. So that's when things get interesting. So anyone who's listened to this show over the past 2 weeks would notice that, take myself out of it, between Sean Redditch, Damien Martin and Cody Ellis, I think three reasonable names who know what they're talking about and know the Wildcats history pretty well. Nick Kay's name was not mentioned once as a potential in this team, and it's not because no one didn't respect him as a player. Everyone knows how good he is as a player, but the reality is he only played 2 seasons in Perth. This is the 40th anniversary team. In my mind, there should have been some criteria set where you need to have been part of more than 2 out of 40 years. Potentially something like 100-game minimum would have worked in my mind, and I think that probably should have been implemented, because the reality is these things, when we're looking back in 50 years' time and people look back on the history of the Perth Wildcats, they'll reflect on the 40th anniversary team, and these 10 players are the ones that they're going to see. They're not going to see the ones that were unlucky to miss out. So these things they're a big deal. And to me, it's disappointing to two players in particular. And it was a toss of the coin in my mind between Matty Knight, who played, I think it was 7 and a bit seasons, and Jesse Wagstaff, who's still going now, in his 13th year at the club. To me, their longevity should have outweighed however good Nick Kay's first 2 seasons were. What was your reaction, Cody?
Yeah, look, I think similar. And this is where I think whoever put the criteria together, or I guess lack of criteria together, had a bit of a misstep. So from the sounds of things, it was put a team on the floor who you would want to go out and win a game. And for me personally, I don't think that is how you should be picking a 40th anniversary team.
No. An all-star team is a bit different, I think.
Absolutely. But and that's what we're talking about. It's not an all-star team. It's not a Wildcats all-star team. It's a 40th anniversary team. And absolutely no disrespect to Nick. He's one of my good mates. Play alongside him for a couple of years. I've known him for a long time. Yeah. Amazing player. I think he was as important as Bryce was in those couple of years. And like you said, I think the criteria needed to be a certain amount of games or a certain amount of seasons with the club. And yeah, look, like I said, it's a bit of a misstep, I think. And
that's not picking on Nick, because we obviously love him as a player. I remember in the first season of this show, we had a similar discussion, myself and Sean, about Bryce Cotton. And I think at that point he was only in his third season. And we felt if you were picking a team like this, or the discussion might have been at that time if he was the greatest player at the Wildcats, we felt that at that point he hadn't played enough games. And Sean agreed. So, I mean, I'm taking my opinion out of it. But Sean felt like at that point he hadn't played enough games, and he probably played around the 60 or 70 game mark. And Sean was saying somewhere between 100 and 150 games before he can be considered like something like that. And I think right now, if Bryce Cotton had only played the 2 seasons, he probably doesn't get in the team either in my eyes, because even if he had been the MVP for those 2 seasons, I just don't think in a 40th anniversary team that 2 years is enough.
No, and that's where the criteria has to be very sound. And it's frustrating now looking back at it, because it's all done and dusted now, and that's what's going to go down in the books. And look, we're not the ones that have to put it together and all that sort of stuff. And there's obviously lots of pressure on it. But this was overlooked pretty badly, this little spot.
And I guess the question everyone's waiting for me to ask you is, what was your reaction and what was your dad's reaction when Kevin Lish was given that guard spot ahead of Mike Ellis?
Yeah, look, his initial reaction was similar to what I said in the podcast last week. He said, look, water off the duck's back. It doesn't bother him too much, but I really think it does. I think it would eat away at him a bit. You go from being the co-captain of the 30th anniversary team to not making the 40th anniversary team. I think that is a bit bogus, and I think since then the Cats seem to have posted a fair amount of Mike Ellis content. So, and look, scrolling through some of the comments and all that sort of stuff, I think everyone is a bit shocked that he wasn't in the team. And again, absolutely no disrespect to Lishy. Again, another amazing player who had an impact when he was here. A guy that was looked at, he almost got the sack because he didn't live up to expectations his first few games, and then stuck with it, and Bevo stuck with it and ended up being MVP, finals MVP, did a lot for the club and has done a lot for the league. But, again, a captain, the inaugural captain, 11 years, has done a heck of a lot for the club, for the NBL. And like I said last week, he's still on a lot of the promotional videos, a lot of the promotional content.
Including since this team came out.
Right, exactly. Yeah. So, it's frustrating, but it is what it is.
It's a similar thing, because I can imagine if you're picking a team to go out and play a one-off game, I understand why you would want the brilliance of Kevin Lish out there, because he could be a match winner. But over the course of a 10-year stretch, probably want the consistency of a Mike Ellis because of how good he was running a team and as the leader. And that's what this should have been. An anniversary team should respect the guys who made the biggest contributions over that 40 years.
Oh, exactly. And I don't have his exact numbers, but I think, he averaged somewhere between 14 and 15 points a game, 5 or 6 assists a game, a couple boards in there as well. Over an 11-year span, that's pretty impressive, especially considering, when they started, it was kind of just whoever rocked up to tryouts made the team. It's frustrating, man. I don't know. I do think it's going to eat at him a little bit. Not that he'll let that show.
Oh, he won't. But what about you? Does it upset you? What's your personal reaction?
Yeah, look, I think it upset me a bit more than I thought it was going to. Yeah. So the club had called Dad and mentioned it to him that he hadn't made the team. And then Dad had called me straight away and told me as well. We'd been talking about it the couple of days before. And they'd also told him that they had to call a current player and tell him that he wasn't in the team as well. Being Jesse. Being Jesse. So, and I was fairly shocked at that. I was fairly shocked. And I guess more disappointed for Dad just because of, I guess, the loyalty that he's shown to the club. And again, you can't knock the people that voted because the criteria wasn't set properly, right? Sure. Yep. So you heard Case and Liam talking about it on one of the games the other night, and Liam said, the criteria we got was put your best team on the floor, right?
And like we just said, if we're picking a team to go and play a one-off game, then
absolutely,
you can make a pretty good case for Kay and Lish.
That's probably a fairly set-in-stone squad right there if it was an all-star team. Absolutely.
All right, Cody. We've got a lot to get through because we still need to get to Rob Beveridge shortly. And there was a lot happening on the court. But before we get on the court, what did you think when the tribunal handed Matt Hodgson a one-game suspension? And then, so that was an independent judiciary, so independent of the league. The league clearly wasn't happy with that decision. No. So they've now appealed that decision. We'll get that result in time for the game on Saturday night to find out if Matty Hodgson will be available to play or not. Yep. I don't know your opinion. I haven't asked you this off air. My thoughts are the 3-game suspension was fair. I don't know why it was then 2 of those games were suspended. So maybe that's what the league is hoping for. What are your thoughts?
Look, I think it was a fairly soft suspension. The 1 game with the 2 suspended. Originally, I thought that it was 3, minimum 2 games. Because you look at the suspensions that have been handed out already in the season with Peatling, with the hip and shoulder to Creek, it's basically the same thing. And that's 2 face palms to the face that...
The actions weren't the same.
No, not at all. And they don't deserve the same, suspension. So one of the big uproars is people thinking that the NBL made this decision and then appealed their own decision. And that's not the case at all. So it's going to be interesting to see what happens. I think he will get 2 or 3.
I think it's fair to say we won't be seeing him on Saturday night.
I don't think so at all, no, you're right.
All right, let's get on the court. Let's race through the results that we saw after we recorded our first show last week. So started Wednesday night. This was a shocking result, probably more so the margin and the way the game played out. The New Zealand Breakers beat the Illawarra Hawks 90-67. Another surprise, probably, but maybe not considering the form that they continued. The Tasmania JackJumpers beat the Sydney Kings 77-70. Cairns Taipans, severely short-handed, but it didn't matter. They beat the Brisbane Bullets 102-94. This was a fascinating game too. The Perth Wildcats, after a horribly slow start, overran the South East Melbourne Phoenix 101-79. Another shocker, but this team's playing some exciting basketball. The Tasmania JackJumpers, the first ever road win, 94-85 over Melbourne United, and Sydney Kings bounced back to beat the New Zealand Breakers 84-65, and finally, tough loss for the Hawks again. They went down at home to the Phoenix 88-87.
Yeah.
I think we have to start with the JackJumpers, Cody. They're all of a sudden inside the top 4. They've won 4 games straight. They're the form team of the competition, and they're pretty exciting to watch.
Yeah, they're playing really good basketball. And like we said last week, you see the coaching staff so excited and so pumped and so into it, that drags you along as a player with it. And they're fun to watch. They're fun to watch, and while they're not the best team on paper, they've got weapons places. You've got to respect most of their guys from outside, and then you got big Magnay inside just being a dominant force. But they're a sneaky team. They're a sneaky team, and I think people are now obviously going to take note and have to come out and match their energy. I think that's how you're going to have to beat them. You're going to have to match their energy, but that's tough to do when they've been doing it for the whole season so far. That's what they hang their hat on.
Yeah, there's a couple of things with them. It's the energy, the fact that they can play full-court defence for 40 minutes, which is not easy to do, but they've got enough players that they can rotate through and they can do it. And now they've got guys making shots, and I want to get your thoughts on Mcintosh. I think a lot of people were wondering if he actually had a place on that team, but against Melbourne United in that first half, he was the biggest reason why they opened up a big lead. Mm-hmm. So coming into that game, he was only averaging 4.8 points a game, 3.3 rebounds. He was shooting 30.8% from the field, 6.7% from three. Yeah. But he caught fire and he got going. I think it was 13 of his 16 points for the game in the first half. Mm-hmm. And I think you credit Scott Roth for that, because he's doing two things. He's pushing him hard and being his biggest critic, but also being his biggest supporter to know that he's not, I guess, on the chopping block.
Yeah, definitely. And Scott kind of seems to be that kind of a coach that will have you back. And that's someone that you want to play for, right? As an import, I think he had no choice but to be big this round. Yep. And like you said, he was a big reason that they kind of busted that lead open a little bit on Melbourne. But he's going to have to prove that over the next couple of weeks as well. He's going to have to keep doing that. And if anything, he's going to have to build on it. Because I think if Tassie want to be a legit contender, they're going to have to get a lot out of him. Sure. Or they're going to have to move on pretty quickly and find someone that's going to bring a lot. Yeah, it's a tough one. It's a tough one. He's another import that kind of saved his job over this weekend, I think.
Just like we spoke about Dusty Hannah's last week, and unfortunately for him, he didn't get to back it up because the 36ers games got wiped. Yep. But speaking of imports, do Melbourne United need to add something to this group? Now, I put a little caveat on it so obviously for this game against the JackJumpers, they were missing Jack White, Ariel Hakporty. So they're two of their front court and they're two key players. But Dean Vickerman didn't mess around post-match saying that he needed more from other people. Mm-hmm. So you couldn't possibly ask for more from Joe Luala-Chul. 26 points, 20 rebounds, a couple of blocks. He was massive. And Chris Golding, as we said last week, I think I said he might have gone for 30. You said he might go for more than 30. He didn't quite get there. He didn't quite get there, but he had a big game. So he had 29. But the rest of the team combined for 30 points, 8 rebounds, 14 of 42 from the field, 0 of 5 from 3. Obviously, Caleb Agada had a quiet game. They need him to step up. They're a bit different if White and Hakporty are there, but they've got two free import spots. Mm-hmm. Do they need to fill one?
I don't know. This has been a tough one with Melbourne because, again, on paper, and that's not where you win basketball games on paper, but on paper, they are just ridiculously stacked. Yep. I think seeing Goulding come out and hit some shots is probably a bit of a warning sign for the rest of the league now that he's found his shot again. We said he wasn't going to go over again, right? No. You bring in White, you bring in Hakporty. That's two big energy guys for them. I think Hakporty's kind of been a little underrated. He's been spoken about, but I think he's been a little underrated for them just in his energy and what he does, not necessarily on the stat sheet, but just the little things. And then, obviously Jack White speaks for himself. He does all that sort of stuff, gets after it. It's a tough one. I don't know if you would bring another import in.
It's not an obvious type of player that they need.
No.
Like there's not necessarily an area where I think they are lacking in. Maybe it's just the fact that too many guys had a down game on Sunday.
Yep, and look, I think Shea probably needs to lift his game a bit as their point guard and their leader on the floor. I think Dean's obviously asking a lot from him, but he's a good enough player that he can do that. So I think he probably needs to lift his game a little bit. But there's not an obvious spot where you'd be like, look, they need this. So it's a tough one for them.
We'll keep an eye on it because they're still going okay. They're still 8-4, and I think we all still see them as a championship threat. Mm-hmm. Maybe not so much the Illawarra Hawks right now. Again, if we look at them on paper, it's a hell of a talented squad, but it's just not clicking for them right now. That loss they had on last Wednesday to the Breakers was, I think, embarrassing the way that they played. Mm-hmm. They played better on Monday night, but they still lost to the Phoenix, and they were in a winning position with 30 seconds to go, and they found a way to lose it. I know Brian Gorgon keeps talking about the fact that they're getting the wrong end of the green with the officials. I think the problems go a little bit deeper than that, and maybe that's not where we should be focusing. I'm not sure what your thoughts are.
Yeah, look, they're struggling. They're in a major rut right now, and it's odd to see a Gorgon team like this. Watching that first game against the Breakers, their defense was just non-existent. Yep. They let the Breakers do whatever they wanted. They could move the ball, they penetrated when they wanted. Against a Breakers team who you put a bit of pressure on right now and they'll fold, right? But they let them feel good about themselves, get up and about, and then all of a sudden it's tough to fight back, right? I don't think Gorge probably needs to be going at the refs. Obviously, he needs to stay on them because that's what you need to do as a coach, have your teams back. But I think it runs a bit deeper than that. And I think just their defence in general, it doesn't look like they're all buying in.
The last play that he was unhappy with, where Radden Mays fouled Munford for taking the 3, they'd almost forced the turnover. They'd almost done well to almost force Creek to turn it over, but Munford was able to salvage it. There was no doubt about it being a foul. Like you said, it's the ref didn't get that call wrong. That was a pretty clear foul.
Well, it was, and Gorge was always going to appeal it and look to review it, but
it cost him a timeout that could have advanced the ball too.
It did, but Munford missed the free throw anyway. They wouldn't have been able to advance it.
Interesting. Munford said afterwards that he wasn't going to miss it until Creek told him
came up and as soon as Creek walked up, I went, I bet he's telling him, and that's a smart play, but you've got to make sure that you miss it properly and hit the ring. So that's almost harder to do than actually making the free throw.
We've seen a lot of screw-ups from trying that, haven't we?
Yeah. But look, Rathan Mays was just in a bad spot. It's one of those ones where you get a hand up, if he makes it over you, it's out of a fumble play, picks it up off the floor, makes a tough shot.
You prefer to lose to that than to lose by the foul line, don't you?
You do. Because the foul line is just bunnies, especially the way that game was going, that was the Hawks game. They needed that.
They did.
For their confidence. I think the defense lifted a little bit, still not where it needs to be, especially for a Gorge and coach team, but that's one that they needed, and a very short-handed Phoenix team.
Well, for the Phoenix, it was a bonus win. They didn't have the coach, Simon Mitchell. They didn't have the captain, Kyle Adnam. They didn't have Cam Glidden. They didn't have Ruben Tarangi. They didn't have Dane Pino as well. So, that was a bonus win for them.
Oh, it definitely was. They went in and pinched one. And that's, you see Judd, who's been waiting 16 years to get a coaching job. He probably pulled 2 very tough games to coach his first couple of games.
Absolutely.
But he's done well to go in and steal one, in Wollongong. And
just finally, Perth Wildcats found a way to just keep winning. They were down a lot early against the Phoenix, but they had different guys step up. Luke Travers, I spoke to him during the week last week, and he said that his shot's been looking good in practice, and he said it was only a matter of time before it would start falling in a game, and it did. He knocked down 4 of 6 from 3. They just dominated that game after quarter time, and sends a message of what that team's still capable of, because they probably still didn't play their best. Obviously didn't have Hodgson. Blanchfield, I think, didn't score. To still win 101-79, that was a big win.
Well, that's it. You've got, again, another team on paper that's really good, top to bottom. And with the Cats winning culture, they just know how to win games. So, Bryce again, 21 under his season average, so that's technically a down game for him. I'd love to have a 21-point down game. That'd be fantastic.
I think Vic Law scored in single digits too.
I think he had 2 points with maybe the fourth quarter to go. So if you had said, Vic Law only a handful of points, Toddy Blanchfield doesn't play, you don't have Hodgson out there, and Majuk's going to hit his second 3, and they beat a really good Southeast Melbourne team by 20 odd points. That's a heck of a win. That's a heck of a win. And you're right, LT was awesome. He looked like he was shooting the ball with confidence.
He did.
They went into a timeout
after he gave up a shot early.
He did.
Once he was told, don't do that again.
Don't do it.
He didn't do it again.
Well, that's it. And they went into a Phoenix timeout, and you heard Creaky saying he needs to make 3 before we budge on him. He certainly proved them wrong, and he hit 4 of them. So, which was good. But the thing I really liked was he was still aggressive going at Chi. Right.
Absolutely.
Going to his body, drawing fouls on him. Lots of people aren't going to want to do that because of his size. So I think LT played an awesome game for them.
All right, so a lot happened last round, Cody, and believe it or not, Damo's come through with his best defensive player votes.
Yep.
Interesting votes for the round as well. So he went the 3 votes for this round. Finn Delaney from the Breakers.
Yep.
Probably wouldn't have been my first choice, but obviously Damo knows better than us. Look at all of his best defensive trophies that he has. Joe Luala-Chul, I don't think too many arguments from that. And Matty Kenyon. There is his votes for round 10. And Taj McCall still leading from the Cairns Taipans on his leaderboard. I don't think too many arguments from that, even though the Taipans have still only played 7 games.
Oh, not at all. Not at all. Taj he's a really fun defender to watch. Just he's so active. He's digging. He's helping his team. That doesn't surprise me that with half the games of every other team basically that he's still leading that leaderboard. But you're right. Damo knows best on the defensive end, so we're not going to budge on any of those. And
you're probably relieved that you don't have to give those votes.
Yes, absolutely, absolutely. Like I said, big shoes to fill, and I'm happy that he's come through there.
What you do have to do, though, is decide the winner of the Galen as the best team man for what we saw in round 10. So the guy who didn't necessarily put up the biggest numbers, but had the biggest influence on helping his team win. So feel free to pick one that I've nominated, or if somebody else jumped out. Michael Frazier, to me, the Wildcats look a much more balanced team. He's leading them in rebounds so far this season. He's not scoring probably as much as he might have thought, or we might have thought, but he's doing a lot of other things. The captain, Jesse Wagstaff's doing a lot to help them win as well.
Jesse being Jesse.
The man we just spoke about, Taj McCall, had a big impact for the Taipans, but potentially an even bigger impact energy-wise. As we talked about him last week, Keanu Pinder. And if we're talking about energy, no one with more energy than Jack McVeigh for the JackJumpers. Also, Ryan Brokoff. He's doing a lot of things outside of shooting right now for the Phoenix. Isaiah Liafa had to step up as well with the guys that the Phoenix were missing. Does one of those jump out?
Lots of those jump out, actually, to be honest with you. It's a tough one this week. You're right. Frazier's actually been really good for the Cats. You know, another guy that started the year, I probably wasn't too high on him, but he's just doing a lot of the little things. Like you said, he's probably not scoring as much as he would like to, but he doesn't have to in that team.
Sure.
You know, he needs to be that kind of a glue guy. Jesse, obviously, you know, doing Jesse Wagstaff things. You know, that's a given. McCall, same thing. They play how he plays. And Keanu is fairly similar. I think those two are just massive as to where Cairns end up finishing. And again, an undermanned team. I think those two need to keep with the energy. Jack McVeigh, the Energizer Bunny. He was huge. He had a massive shot, but was aggressive and got some big boards
in both their wins.
Yeah, big time. Rowdy or Ryan Brokoff, huge. He was massive for them in that game against the Hawks. You know, not lighting the scoreboard up yet like everyone thought he would, but 16 boards, got on the floor, was out hustling a lot of the Hawks guys. And Leafa is just, again, he's just one of those glue guys that is really good for the Phoenix. I think he is a very underrated piece to their team. But I think I'd have to go with Brokoff this week just because of, you know, what he's doing away from what everyone expects.
Sure.
You know, I think he was 3 for 11, I think we said.
So, yeah.
Not Ryan Brokoff numbers at all. And he hasn't quite shown us what he can do yet, which I know would be frustrating for him. Very much a confidence guy. Once he sees a few go through, it's going to be pretty dangerous for the league. But 16 boards, diving on the floor, like I said, out hustling. I think he was a big reason why the Phoenix stayed in that game against the Hawks and got a much-needed win.
Absolutely. So there we go. Winner of the Galen Award for this week, Ryan Brokoff. Now, Cody, when we come back, you're going to catch up with your old coach, and we're looking forward to chatting with Rob Beveridge.
Can't wait.
Okay, back on Hoop 7's Basketball Hustling. Once again joined by Rob Beveridge, the Master Coach, and excited to have him on board, but Also excited to have him catch up with my new co-host, and you'll be pleased to know, Bevo, we're not sitting in a car this time.
Yeah, well, I know you've done it before. Sat in the car with Damo, holding hands and listening to music together in a park, and I think a lot of people were very suspicious of you two guys. So that's good to hear.
Yeah, we did have some strange looks from people walking their dogs past us. But before I let you catch up with Cody, Bevo, less than 24 hours after that last chat, it was revealed you'd be the new Boomers coach, and you didn't tell us. You kept it a secret.
Yeah. No, I had to keep it pretty quiet. Because I actually spoke to. BA approached me back in October to see if I could do the November window and the February window. But unfortunately, the November one was cancelled because of COVID. It was just really, really bad. I mean, we couldn't get in, couldn't get out, all the quarantining. So that was cancelled. So I wasn't too sure what was going to happen with the February window. But anyway, I got the phone call and, Gorge was unavailable. He always said he was probably going to be unavailable because of NBL commitments. And, so very pleasant surprise to have that call and, be appointed head coach of Boomers, which has always been a lifetime goal of mine. But, you take it how it comes. So I'm pretty excited about it.
Bevo, you said that it was a bit of a surprise. Did you have any idea that they'd give you the call-up?
No. I honestly thought that my days with national program were over. Just like when I left Illawarra, I thought my career was over. That was it. As we all know, it was a pretty nasty couple of years at Illawarra in the end, and I didn't want anything to do with basketball after that or bad experiences, and so I basically moved on, and I hadn't had anything to do with Basketball Australia for a bit, but then I did the World Junior Games, which sort of revitalised myself and actually. I guess it helped me get confidence back. After the Illawarra experience, I lacked a lot of confidence, really. Yeah. After being a career coach and the stuff you went through, but I guess it put me in a situation at the World Junior Games that I could coach. We won a bronze medal. We were 1 point off making the gold medal game and stuff like that, and we could have had a shot at it. But that gave me the energy, the enthusiasm to get back in a coaching. So I did really well at the uni games, and I guess they were looking for a coach that does have international experience, tournament play in particular, somebody that can put a team together in a short period of time. So I guess I ticked those boxes.
Yeah, for sure. And look, if you look around, you're certainly one of the the best coaches going around that isn't currently in a coaching job. So I think that you were probably the obvious choice, certainly if I was picking it.
Well, speaking of that, Bevo, did you consider giving Cody a call to be part of the team?
It's been a really interesting process because I've been away from it. But Basketball Australia, they've got what they call their depth charts, so they've got them, like, I don't know if you want to call it it's not listed as an A-class player, but you got your NBA players, you got all of that, and then you got all your NBL players and all your centre of excellence players, and your under 17s, 19s, and stuff like that. So that's sort of how the team did come about from that. All the players there. When there were no NBL players available, that's when they said, "Well, we want to blood these younger ones and get some of the other more experienced players that are playing in Europe." But I'd love to have Cody on the team because he knows the system, he knows how to play. But he's gone on and done. He's moved on with his basketball life now.
It's interesting. I spoke about it with Cody last week. If he would accept the offer, if you called him, and I've also spoken to Adam Gibson. Did you consider one of those older type players, or given you had Nick Kay and you've got sort of Craig Moller and these experienced guys, Angus Brandt, was it sort of? Did you consider anyone that wasn't, I guess, currently playing to be that experienced?
Pretty much the answer. The answer is no, because they had a list. So much behind the scenes. So they had a list of players, but those players who are on the list had to be registered to get visas and all these clearances with the Japanese government, and that had to be done a while ago. And it was after the list was sent through, that's when you hear all people go, what about this person? What about that person? And you go on, that would be brilliant, but it's too late.
Yep. Yeah. Okay.
That makes sense. These are things you sort of learn that, you've got to have all the FIBA registration. You need to, over in Japan, for example, it's been really tough because they're in complete lockdown. You can't get in the country. So we've had to apply for visas, special visas, to get into Japan, and we're going through that process at the moment. So it's been pretty tough to try and get who we want and things like that.
There's a lot of exciting players on the squad, but probably the most exciting thing for me is seeing you reunite with SD. I'm sure you're looking forward to that. Yeah,
well, that I was super excited about that.
Oh, is that not
unfortunately, SD had to step down.
Oh, wow. I didn't know.
Yep. So officially he stepped down, but unofficially he's going to do whatever he can to help. It was a no-brainer when they appointed. They'd already appointed Mike Kelly and Robbie McKinlay. But I said, look, I really need to have SD, who's worked with me forever, knows the system, lives in Japan, knows the Japanese better than anyone. So they just jumped at it and said, yeah, definitely want to do that. But the problem we're having is that because we're flying in from Australia, which is classified as a hot zone according to Japan, and the same with Chinese Taipei, that when the Australian players, Australian people in Japan, so for example, Nick Kay, Angus Brandt and Ruth Vague and SD, when they come and join us, once they've joined us, they're classified as, well, I guess, contaminated. That's not the word that they use, but they have to then quarantine. So originally they said that they had to quarantine for 14 days after the game, which straight then, that created a whole lot of turmoil. So now they've cut it back to 6 days. But because they're going to be, with the Australian team for, say, 8 or 9 days, they then have to quarantine for 6 days afterwards, which means they miss more games. Sure. So SD, he just couldn't do it. His club just said, no, we can't. We're happy for you to do the games, but if he did the 6 days quarantine, he could miss 3, 4, 5 games as the head coach. Because they play sometimes three games a week. Yeah. So he had to step down, and it's still in doubt with the other 3. We're still that's why we've announced a squad of 16 people, because we're still to this very day going through with the clubs and with the federation and with FIBA and just trying to get those players available.
Yeah, well, that was going to be my next question. Obviously, sorry to hear that about SD, mate. I know how close you guys are, and that would have been awesome to see you guys coaching together again. And I'm sure you would have loved having him there with you.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. So, but look, you've got a squad of 16, like you said. Are you planning on cutting that down at all, or is that what you're just going to roll with? Obviously, depends on what happens with those guys already there.
Yeah, so tonight we've got a staff meeting tonight after I get off this call, and that's what we will discuss. So we still are waiting upon Japan to say, yep, we can release these players and things like that. So it's a bit of a waiting game, and I think we'll probably give it a deadline till maybe Friday. So we've registered all those players that we've listed, so we can choose any of them now because we're getting all their visas and flights and what have you. So really, we'll go with 12, but we'll have some reserves there because we've also got to take in consideration that there could be COVID between now and then.
Right.
So if somebody gets COVID, well, that rules them out straight away. And then if somebody gets injured. So for example, Kyle Zunic, who's in the squad, he rolled his ankle a week and a half ago. And he's progressing very well, but we still have to get medical clearances for people like him. So it's, I'm not trying to beat around the bush, but we're hoping that obviously in my mind I've got my 12 that I want to take, but I may not be able to get them. So I've got to look at the others. So. It's an interesting situation.
Yeah, that's got to be tough, and the world is obviously a mess right now. So we've just got to roll with the punches, I guess.
Yeah, exactly. Yep.
Was it tough to get guys like Kyle and Mike Kelly, who are in the NBL right now, going through what is a chaotic season over here as well? Was it tough to get those guys on board?
Well, Basketball Australia contacted all of the clubs and said, okay, well, this is the situation. So technically, the NBL is meant to stop for the FIBA window.
Yeah.
So we could have actually, forced all the NBL players to play, but there was just collaboration between BA and the NBL, and the amount of games that would be postponed due to COVID and things like that they're so far behind with catch up that really Basketball Australia didn't want to affect the running of the NBL, which I think's been a pretty good thing that they've done. So then it was going, okay, what's the plan? And the plan was, okay, let's identify people that have been part of the Basketball Australia pathway, represent, the 17s, 19s, World Uni Games and stuff like that. So then it was out to all the NBL clubs to find out, okay, well, where are they? And that's why the majority of the players are development players.
One player I want to get your thoughts on quickly, and then I want to talk. We'll move on and talk about some other things with Cody, with you, Bevo. Emmett Nah. You gave him his start in the NBL. I mean, he's proven he can be a good NBL point guard. I mean, you've got him in this squad. Are you surprised he's not part of the Hawks rotation right now?
Yeah, if you look at the Hawks, they're so deep with their imports in the guards. And that's probably one of the biggest things is that, the way Gorge is running the team, it's, Cleveland and Harvey and Reth and Mays, they're all guards, and they've got Jessup as well. So they've got like 4 of their imports are actually guards. So that makes it really, really hard for Nah. And also Isaac White and, whoever else. It's very difficult from the play. But, I love him. I had him, with us for a couple of years, and, he was tremendous. He fitted in so well that, he's one of the best on-ball players that I've coached. His ability to find players, and he doesn't get flustered, stuff like that. So I spoke to Gorgon about, he's the only one that's really contracted in the team. All the rest of the DPs are all playing in overseas. So I said to Gorgon, well, he's not really playing, and I need to have somebody that's actually played in my system in the past, because we've only got 2 days prep. We've got a total of 4 sessions and 2 days, that's it. So that's why I'm trying to say, well, at least I know where I've got a point guard like Emmett that is so smart, and he'll be able to run a team for me in such a short period of time.
Absolutely. What about Cody? I remember I was talking about this with Cody last week. I remember sitting in your office when you were a Wildcats coach before Cody came back from college, and you were disappointed that you didn't get the all clear from above to bring him in, and the Kings obviously were able to bring him in. Can you just talk about the journey with both Cody and the Ellis family, and what it's like to catch up with him again? Because I don't think you've seen him for a little while.
Yeah, no, it has been. It's been a long time, and I mean, Cody's always been one of my favourite players, and. Obviously, I've been in Perth for a long period of time, and, the Ellis family, they are Perth basketball, and, developed a great relationship with the majority of the Ellis family, with Mike and, his mum Robin and, Glenn, and, we used to hang out a bit, so developed a real good relationship, and, I wanted Cody to come back and, to Perth, and when I was there to, how good it would have been to have Cody there in Perth, but that just didn't happen. But, I move on, and I had the opportunity to bring him in Illawarra. So, really it was fantastic because, I know Cody's there listening and stuff like that, but, he's just a tremendous human being, one of the best people that I've ever coached. And, and it was the stuff that Cody and I had to go through was, I know Cody was devastated, but I was devastated that I was perceived to be part of it, and it was the worst basketball experience I've ever been in. That I've always been in control as the head coach. That. I'm the decision maker. I'm the recruiter. I'm the person that gets my people in, and that's why I've had success. Is because we've got a pretty much a no dickhead policy, and we get good people that work hard and got talent, and that's exactly what had in Cody, and unfortunately we had management that was completely interfering. That's the reality of it, and it's one of those things I don't care anymore. It was like I was almost silenced. You can't say anything, whatever else, but it's one of those things where I don't really care too much anymore because I doubt I'll ever coach in the NBL again. And for what Cody had to go through was just gut-wrenching for obviously Cody and his family and Lauren, but to be perceived to be part of what happened was really it was just so bad. Unfortunately, that I think when all the stuff went down with Cody, I reflect and I look at that was probably the start of the end of my career in the NBL because I fought it. I fought the management, I fought the owners, and I was made out to be the bad guy and the troublemaker. And I think that was probably a perception that was given from that management at the time, or the ownership and management, was that I was difficult to work with because I'd stuck up for my players. And I refused to do some of the things that they told me to do. And I'd never regret that, but, I look back in, you're all expert in hindsight, and, it was, I'd do the same thing again. I should have done it a lot earlier than what I did.
Well, let me start off by saying, Bevo, and thank you for, I guess, prolonging what my NBL career was, because after Sydney, it was looking pretty grim there for me for a while, and it wasn't till a week before preseason, really, or the weekend before preseason started, that we'd had that conversation, and that you wanted to get me on board, and again, kind of just relit that flame for me, and coming in and playing for you for that couple of years was a lot of fun. Obviously with what went down was certainly not, but to play under you and with the squads we had, it really ignited my love for basketball again, and I'll certainly be grateful forever for that. From you. But I think it's one of those things that people on the outside don't really understand when management steps in. And you see it on a lot of the smaller teams. It doesn't really happen on the, hard to say because I haven't really been part of them, but on those bigger scale teams like your Melbournes, I'm sure, guys like Dean kind of has his role, and he does kind of what he wants. The management kind of sticks out of it, and that's what I'd imagine why you hire a head coach for is to do that exact job. And when you get management sticking their nose into things, it's never a good thing.
Yeah, and it was I said I've been away from the NBL, and it gave me an opportunity to really sort of get back and reflect about what is successful and what isn't successful, and that helped with me writing a book with Birdie, Dr. Stephen Bird, and that was one of the chapters that I actually specifically wrote about was cultures, and being involved with the Perth Wildcats for a period of time where we had a very good culture of the philosophy of being athlete-centered, coach-driven, and minister-supported. So we had really good athletes, and we put an infrastructure in place for the players to succeed, and then we just had the management support us with the finances and the resources and whatever we needed, and that, I think that model works, and I've been involved in that. But then when you look at Illawarra, where it was no longer about the athlete, it was almost a case of the management treated the team like a PlayStation, like it was 2K whatever, just playing around with the players and the players' lives and the coaches and the staff, and it was almost like a game, and it just doesn't work that way. And that's why we probably we started off well, semi-final, grand final, and then all of a sudden things all change. Where management want to have more of a say in everything, and lost their trust in me as the coach. I think that was probably one of the first things, because we started the season poorly, and they just took over and said, well, no, this is what's going on, this is what we're doing. And it just proves that it doesn't work. And it became really a real toxic environment, a really, really tough situation. So I think that what I've learned is it reinforced to me about what the successful teams do is that they've got great staff, they're supported by the ownership, and it's not like a kid in a candy store, but they allow the coaches to be able to say, hey, we need to do this, this and this, and they're supported.
Yep.
And unfortunately, that just didn't happen.
No, definitely didn't. And yeah, looking back, it's certainly very frustrating. Like you said, those first 2 seasons were super successful, and we were the talk of the league for most of those 2 seasons, really. And third season, we didn't obviously start off the way we probably should have, but that's kind of basketball, and that's what happens. And like I said to Chris last week on the podcast, there was no one really to blame for that. And
certainly wasn't Cody. Was it?
Yeah, no, we started on the road. I think the first 5 games were something on the road, and I think we had Perth, we had Cairns, and I can't remember the other one. But it was a tough start. But all of a sudden it was they've come in and say, well, this is what we're doing, and we go, well, geez, I knew it was never going to work.
And it didn't. I appreciate you opening up about that, Bevo. Now, I know you've got that Boomers meeting very shortly. I want to get your thoughts on one more thing. 400 games this Saturday for Jesse Wagstaff. I remember when he first rocked in his board shorts that first day in Perth when he turned up. I mean, it's amazing to think that was 13 years ago now. Yeah, no,
it's amazing, and again, and just another great person. I've been blessed to have coached, some wonderful people in my career. And, I've known Jesse, since he was a very small kid. I think everybody knows the story about his mum being my primary school teacher. And, his dad was my woodwork teacher in year 7. And, so I've known the Wagstaff family forever. And, his older sister. And, it was amazing. And then, after he came out of college and we managed to get him to Perth, and it's like here he is 13 years later, and exceptionally smart player. He's one of the smartest on and off the court that I've ever coached. He's a rocket scientist. But he's just taken care of himself, and he's evolved as a player. No nonsense about him. Great guy. I mean, they made him the captain of the team. I think that's just wonderful recognition as well. And 400 games is amazing. It really is. And who knows how many more he's got in him, but he just provides. He's steady. He does. He's so good for the club, and I'm proud to say that I was his coach and also a friend.
No, fantastic, Bevo. Well said, and really appreciate you taking your time out for us again. It was great to hear you catch up with Cody and for you to both share that story. We'll do it again in about a month's time, Bevo, and by then you would have coached in Japan, and you might either be in New Zealand or about to head to New Zealand. So we look forward to that, and before that, good luck over in Japan.
Thanks very much, guys. Wonderful catching up with you guys always.
Good luck, Bevo.
Okay, back on Hoop 7's Basketball Hustle. Just finished with Bevo. And Cody, we've got our first call in for the show, your second show. So this doesn't happen all the time. It doesn't always happen that we get a 399-game NBL captain either. Jesse, well, what are you doing right now?
Oh, well, I'm just in lovely Hobart, just sitting in our lounge room that is now home. Well, it has been home for the last month. I thought, why not? Why not call in and say hi?
Now, Cody's talked about how he used to think Sean was his most annoying opponent, but he thinks you probably took the cake by the end. Are you happy with that honour?
Oh, yeah, I'm not so sure that's a compliment, but I guess I'll take it. Often my only advantage is to try to be annoying. I'm not athletic, so I figure my one chance at trying to win is to often just be annoying as possible. So sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. You always look like an idiot, but hopefully it works.
I mean, 400 games in the league, mate. I think it's worked pretty well for you.
Yeah, I'll take it. I've hung around long enough.
You famously don't like the spotlight, Jesse. What's it like this week, knowing that a lot of people are going to want to talk to you ahead of Game 400?
Yeah, it's probably a bit too many media commitments than I like. But I'm happy to take it as long as it's not every week. I can deal with it. It's not that I hate it. rather not do it, I guess.
We won't keep you too long, Jesse, because, well, to be honest, we need to wrap up the show at the same time because Bevo took up a lot of time. But
as I said, that's very unlike Bevo. He normally doesn't like talking, but he must have.
My memories stretch back to 13 years ago, Jesse, when you just arrived in Perth for the first time, and I'd arranged to catch up with you to because I was working for the club at that time, and I caught up with you for the first time, and it's been a fascinating 13 years. So I made you do a lot of things that you probably didn't want to do. We did a radio show for a year where I was your chauffeur because that was the only way you would agree to do it. I made you pose for a photo shoot on your motorbike. I made you pose for a photo shoot with Greg where you were dressed up as Dumb and Dumber. I've seen you become.
I'm going to have to interrupt you there because you weren't always my chauffeur. There were times when, actually, I'm still paying off the petrol given the studio was down in North Margaret River, so I'm still paying off the fuel. So just to correct you there.
There was there was that Dumb and Dumber photo shoot, which I still love. We had a photographer come to your apartment there on Scarborough Beach when you're in a moon boot. I've seen you become a dad. I saw you at the Hopman Cup when your sister was in town. I mean, there's a lot of things over the 13 years, Jesse. It's been quite a journey.
I hope you weren't there when I became a dad, mind you.
No, I hope I hope
Sitting in the corner somewhere.
I hope not
we're close. We're not that close.
But I mean, you won't like me saying this, Jesse, but the thing I love about you is that you haven't changed. I mean, you still are the same person now as you were when you first arrived, and before you were a six-time championship winner and a captain. And these accolades are like something that don't really matter to you because you just like waking up, playing basketball, and you'd be happy if no one recognised you down the street.
No, look, I wouldn't say I'm not happy. I think I'm proud of them, but I think basketball is one part of your life, I guess, and there's lots of other parts that I'm equally happily with. Basketball is fun and it's great, but at the end of the day, it's also just a job. So, I'm happy doing other things too, I guess.
What are your memories of playing against Cody?
Oh, God.
Winning lots of wins.
No, I mean, always tough. We had some battles at Wollongong. Always tough. Always can stretch the floor. Versatile and played hard. So, he's still doing that in the NBL1 for Warwick. So, it's just kind of Cody for you, I guess.
Now, I know I put some words into Cody's mouth before. On another note, he had you in his team for the 40th anniversary of the Wildcats. I have no doubt that you didn't have yourself in that team. How awkward would have you felt if you were named in that team, even though a lot of people feel like you belonged?
Oh, kind of easy either way. I think, personally, I wouldn't have put me in the team, so I'm not exactly hurt by it. Or I think a lot of other people are making a bigger deal of it than it needs to be. I don't see a spot for myself on that team, so it's a non-event for me personally. It's a hell of a team, put it that way.
Well, before I let you go, a lot of teammates of yours on that team as well, with Sean, with Damo, with Nick Kay, with Kevin Lish. That goes to show that you've been part of a pretty special era at the club.
Yeah, it's been a great 13 years. It's just kind of the type of caliber that I've played alongside with, and many guys that didn't even make the team as well. I guess you go look like a James Ennis or someone like that. Mm-hmm. It's Casey Prather. I mean, I could go through a lot. Guys that are exceptionally talented and
please don't forget
that didn't make. Yeah, the danger is when you start naming people, you always leave someone out. So I could be here all day,
yep.
And you're always going to leave someone out. But I've played alongside some exceptionally talented individuals.
All right, Jesse, we better let you go. But thanks for the ring in, and good luck on Saturday
Pleasure.
night. Good luck Saturday night.
Congrats on 400.
Thanks for having me, guys. Thanks for having me, guys.
Okay, Cody, it was fun to have a call into the show. Won't happen every week, but it's not every week that somebody's about to play 400 games either.
No, not at all. And just to clear the air. He was annoying, and so was Sean.
Like I said, I might have put those words into your mouth.
But I think everyone at the Cats has been annoying because it was so tough to beat them, and they're the reason I don't have a championship ring. So.
Unfortunately, he's got 6 of them.
Exactly. Share, mate. Come on.
Could be 7. You never know. Yep. Round 11 in the NBL, Cody. A lot to look forward to. Let's get straight into it. Thursday night. Really looking forward to this one. Be interesting who the Southeast Melbourne Phoenix have available, first of all. But they're up against a Sydney Kings team that's playing pretty well also. Yeah,
a tough one. Again, it's going to depend on who Phoenix have available. Hopefully it's more players than less. But Sydney's been good, but they've been really good and then really average.
Yeah, they weren't so much against the JackJumpers, were they?
No. So they've been a bit up and down, and they need to find some consistency. With that one, I'd probably go with the Phoenix.
How nervous doing these previews are you after last week when some of the games we previewed never ended up happening?
Yeah. Oh, shocking. And the fact that I probably went too far for the round doesn't help.
Friday night, I think the Adelaide 36ers will be pretty desperate to make this game happen. They built some momentum. It was almost 2 weeks ago now when they beat Melbourne United, but they haven't played since. They head up to Brisbane to take on a Bullets team on a 4-game losing streak. So this is a tough one to call too.
Yeah, so as we've seen, teams that come out of their little COVID break have kind of come out pretty slow.
Yes.
And Brisbane have kind of played that way anyway.
Yep.
There's something going on in Brizzy, I think. So that's, again, it's a flip of the coin. I think CJ will have Adelaide up and going, and I think Adelaide get that.
Yeah, I wouldn't be surprised based on what we saw from them last up.
Yep.
Doubleheader on Saturday. No excuses for the Illawarra Hawks. They must bounce back, but it won't be easy. Taipans played well without Machado, without Jerick, without Jawai, without Kenny, without Kouat-Noi as well against Brisbane last week, and I think at least a couple of those will be back for this game. So all the pressure in the world on Gorgon and the Hawks.
Oh, it really is. It really is. And it's a tough one. I think Gorge is obviously going to light a rocket up him, but I feel like he's been doing that.
He already has been.
More often than not so far this year. Cairns look like they're just having fun playing.
Yeah.
They're out there balling forward. He's got them just hooping, and that's what you got to do. I think it'll be close to start, but then I think the Hawks will get that one.
And they need to. Now this one, grand final rematch for the first time. So it's a Melbourne United team that's lost their last 2, and you've got a Perth Wildcats team celebrating the 400th game of their captain.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, this one I think the Cats will get up for, purely because, again, Jesse's 400th. I think with the culture of that club, I don't see how they couldn't get up and about for that game. Melbourne, again, on the back of a bit of a skid though, so Dean's going to have them coming in pretty hot. So that should be, that I think will be game of the round easily.
Oh, absolutely.
But I'm going to pick the Cats in that one.
Sunday, another one that's tough to tip. So the Phoenix coming off their game on Thursday, up against a fresh JackJumpers who have now won 4 straight.
Yep, I think I would have to go with Tassie for a couple of reasons. They're the hot team right now.
They are.
And Phoenix, if they don't have people back, they're going to be knackered. I think their whole starting 5 played 34 plus minutes the other night.
Yep.
If they're going to have to do that against the Kings, they're going to be knackered by Sunday. I think the way Tassie plays, they're just going to run.
You can't be tight against them.
You can't. So I think Tassie gets that.
This will be interesting based on the first games of the round as well. Second up on Sunday, the Kings at home to the Bullets.
I think the Kings get that one. I'm finding it really hard to pick Brizzy right now. I feel like they don't really have an identity for the team. Again, really, really good players. Hopefully Sobes is back. I'm not 100% sure what he's done or the extent of...
No, they've been very secretive about it.
The extent of his injury. But, guys like Jace Kadee needs to step up. Franks needs to be good, really good for them. Big Ty needs to be big. Yep. But I think the Kings end up with too much firepower there and run over them a little bit.
And last up, the Cairns Taipans up against New Zealand Breakers team who it's impossible to get a read on them right now.
It really is. But they'll be coming off a bit of a high. Still, I reckon, right in that wave of the Hawks win. I think.
Although they were pretty bad on Sunday against the Kings.
They were. But yeah, it's a tough one. I think Cairns get that.
Yep.
It's impossible to read New Zealand. It really is. It's so tough. As long as Cairns keep doing what they're doing and just putting one foot in front of the other and having fun playing, I think they'll beat them.
There we go. Let's hope all those games happen, first of all, Cody. Let's hope we don't have any more interruptions. Now, let's wrap up the show. Now, last week, you said that you hoped you had the freedom to say what you wanted to say and that Lauren wasn't listening. Turned out she was listening.
She was, yes.
Have you had to now censor some of what you've had to say, knowing that she's going to be quickly tuning in?
No, not at all. Not at all. She actually laughed at me when she heard what I said. So no, not at all. I'm not going to censor myself. And
you've got some fans in Wollongong especially still. Does it warm your heart to know that you are such a special part of that town, that the people that you had bonds with there are still, your biggest supporters now? Oh,
for sure. I love Wollongong. Always will. Yeah, just fell in love with the place, the community, the fans, and like you said, there's people there that still have my back no matter what, and I appreciate them dearly for it.
All right, Cody, it's been a big show. Thanks to Rob Beveridge. Thanks for Jesse Wagstaff for calling in. Thanks to you, Cody, for all of your insights. I'm Chris Pike. I'll wrap it up for this week. What are your final thoughts? What are you looking forward to this weekend, Cody? And looking ahead to next week, what would you like to hear from Adam Gibson about?
Oh, it'd be good to pick his brain on what he's been doing. I've got a lot of time for Gibbo. I think he's certainly one of the good guys of the league, and it'll be good to have a chat to him, because another person that I haven't really been able to talk to for a while. So in terms of this week, I think hopefully we get all the games in. That's probably my biggest thing.